Hello, my name is Monique Musiel, and I am the author of An Understanding Beyond, which can be read digitally on Amazon. Today I'd like to talk about the touchy subject of sexuality. God created sex for the purpose of a sacred union and bonding for man and woman, and for procreation of the human species by the birth of children for reproduction. He told Adam and Eve, in Genesis 1:28 of the NIV, God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground." Please note that this was said to Adam and Eve before there were 8 billion people on this earth in 2024 currently. A short aside about that, I don't know if God has a purpose in mind for us to keep breeding out of control, but personally I don't see the necessity for Earth's populations to keep increasing at this vast numbers, because I wonder whether we actually have the means of supporting more with the Earth's available resources. I already see that there are many homeless and much poverty. The interesting thing is that there's so much land still available, especially out west, but there's no water there. So I don't know if anybody'd be able to actually live there other than in trailer homes. It'd be nice to see them expand water somehow so that there would be more living space for people, since we are very populated. We have a personal choice these days whether or not to contribute more than our share. Ideally, my thought is that we could try not to exceed 2 children per family by just having one offspring to replace each parent. My husband and I stopped with 2. Naturally, I'm not talking about abortions to achieve these limits. Again, I could be wrong about curbing the population, as God may have other specific plans for achieving a certain number, perhaps for a majority of believers, or simply for the right prophecies and conditions to be fulfilled. If so, who are we to question his plans? Now getting back to the main subject. In the USA, couples can't be married until they are of legal age, which is usually 18. I have heard that in some states a legal marriage can take place a bit younger, but I don't know what that would require. In ancient times, and possibly even in some countries in current times, this may be allowed at a younger age, such that youngsters can marry once they are old enough to reach puberty. The advantage of this would be that they wouldn't have to wait for years while they already have God's built-in desires. Maybe in some of these countries where there are extended families, this could be possible if even if couples have children younger, because they have the support. In our society, it's like every man for himself, so it's not going to work here. This gap between a union with a long-term permanent partner, along with the possibility of even more years added before a suitable partner is found, has caused a gray area of what people are supposed to do about their sexual tensions within that time. Unfortunately, since young teens usually won't have any means to support themselves, much less children, this presents a real problem, since they are not even allowed to have a job until age 15, with parental permission, or otherwise they have to wait until they're 16. I even see that many sons and daughters nowadays still live with their parents way beyond reaching their adult age. Now that real estate and the cost of living has become so unreasonable and ridiculous, there's a lot of people that are not flying the coop when they get older. They're staying home. So in this gray area, as I called it, means that unless they are able to bear abstinence, they may move into risky situations such as venereal disease, possible pregnancies before they're ready for such responsibilities, or just plain heartache. Since couples that have fallen in love intimately were not really meant to part, Jesus said that, Mark 10:9 of the NIV Bible, "Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate." It's disturbing to me that casual sex has become the norm in today's society, with some viewing these serious activities as mere sport. Movies frequently portray two people meeting and thinking nothing of jumping into bed the very first night before they even get to know the other person at all. And that's not the worst of all these examples. Satan has managed to pervert sex to separate us from God by putting twisted ideas in our minds and media. An unnamed dictionary I referred to online defines perversion as 1. The alteration of something from its original course, meaning, or state to a distortion or corruption of what was first intended. That's a perfect description of what people did with what God gave them in the first place. Sexual behavior or desire that is considered abnormal is the other thing it says. Webster's dictionary says it's an aberrant sexual practice or interest, especially when habitual, and that's what they're saying, that that's perversion, or that's what I mean. Okay, I would consider porno and sadomasochism as perversion, as I really can't understand how people can see pain as entertaining or fun. Really? To me, I see pain as suffering, okay? Women who sell themselves for money are also abusing sexuality. And to the real extreme, what about serial killers that have to rape and murder to get their thrills? Obviously pure evil. I think everybody knows that. I want to barf just thinking about it. Just think, in some countries, they cut off the part of the body that has committed the offense. And in the case of a brutal rape and murder, what do you suppose the punishment would be for such a horrible criminal? With God's idea of justice, which states in Matthew 5:38 in the New Living Translation, "You have heard the law that says, the punishment must match the injury, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth." Now, after going over all these misuses of sexuality, in contrast to these extremes, I think there's way too much stigma about sexuality in general, with people thinking it's all a sin anyway. Like we conjured up the idea in our warped minds. This is a huge barrier keeping many people from coming to God. They're basically hiding from Him because they might be judged about this. God's advice in this and all instances of life are meant as guidance to avoid self-inflicted misery. I see the Bible and the commandments as God's instruction manual, where the abuse of the product will cause us harm and ruin. Have you ever heard people say that Bible, Bible, stands for basic instructions before leaving Earth? So don't allow yourself to be naive by not being informed of what God desires for us, thinking that anything you do is okay either, since God says in Proverbs 21:2 of the New American Standard Bible, "Every person's way is right in his own eyes, but the Lord examines the hearts." He can see right through us, and there's no pretense that can fool Him. So we have to be genuine if we want to earn God's blessings. If you haven't already, please take my caring advice and familiarize yourself with what God has written down for us. There's much wisdom to be revealed and learned from the Bible, especially in the New Testament, which contains God's most updated and encouraging information. I hope this podcast has contained some helpful information as well. Again, my name is Monique Musial, and my book, An Understanding Beyond, is available on Amazon in digital form to read. There's some sample chapters you can check out. Hope you've enjoyed my podcast. Happy reading and spiritual journey. Blessings. Thank you for listening.